Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Sheila J. Wood. We're going to be discussing her amazing book, Waiting for Elijah, A Walk Through Time. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com, pretty much wherever books are sold. But people, you're going to want to head on over to her personal website to gather everything that she has in store. And that's SheilaJWood.com. There you'll find more information on her background. You're going to find more information on this fantastic narrative, as well as find the hyperlink set up to take you to the purchasing pages. So one more time, that's SheilaJWood.com. And I do want to take this opportunity and point out that Sheila was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best publishers in the business, Author Reputation Press. So people, if you're a writer out there, or you know someone who has written a narrative and they need assistance, you know who to contact, okay? ARP is one of the best in the business to do it, and they specialize in taking your literary creation to the next level. Head on over to their website today and gather more information on how they can help you. Of course, that website is authorreputationpress.com. Head on over there and see what they have in store. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Sheila here on the line. And at the end of the day, Sheila is the expert. She's written the book, she's done the research, and she's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So let's bring her here with us. Sheila, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction. And thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
This is exciting.
Absolutely. Listen, the pleasure is all ours, and we're very much looking forward to this. I think what you're embarking upon here is profound. I think, just to have a story to get lost in, to take us away from those everyday challenges that we face as human beings, right, and as adults. I think that is something that is incredible in its own right. But as I mentioned, that underlying theme is something that we can all take to the bank, okay? And it is a pleasure to have you as a guest. Before we go into the book, Sheila, let's start off by learning a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about your background, please.
Well, I'm a retired, what I call a retired scientist now. I spend my time studying metaphysics and writing. And I spent 45 years doing research in science, but during part of that time, I just started my study in metaphysics and was very fascinated by it and understood that certainly there's a scientific basis for things like energy healing and, having connections with other people at a spiritual level. So that's an interest of mine. I spent time doing research with the DoD and in industry and in hospital labs. So I'm enjoying my time now as a semi-retired scientist because it's different from what I have been involved in most of my life, but I enjoy writing stories about people and the basis of their behavior and what motivates them. And also, I see strengths in people that I want to write about that originate from their inner self, from their soul. And these threads last through generations, across time and across geography. So it's those connections that I think keep us rooted in what we see as our goals in life from an internal perspective and from a soul growth perspective. So I try to influence my writing with some of those principles. However, it is historical fiction, and it is a book that anybody would enjoy. They do not have to be steeped in history or metaphysics to just enjoy a good read. I mean, you can buy this book and take it to the beach and read it, for vacation. It's not something that's heavy. It's just, if you are interested in those things that connect us as humans and as souls in our journeys, you will be able to see the threads that connect the characters, and you'll be able to recognize some of the principles around metaphysics. So that's kind of like an extra, oh, by the way, bonus in this book. I also think it's quite important now. This book is not about World War II, but World War II is the backdrop, and it is integral to the plot. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that we as citizenry all over the world really do not need to forget what happened during World War II.
Yeah.
And it's a big part. I think it should be a part of the education system. And we need to follow that energy, because I think some of it is still with us today, as we notice it's happening within our citizenry today. And I just feel very strongly that we need to be aware of what's happening in our world. It's interesting to note that this book was published in January of 2022, and in February of 2022, Putin invaded the Ukraine. And I never dreamed that we would be immersed in that energy again, but here we are, 80 years later. We're back to that sort of energy. So I just feel it's incumbent upon us to be aware of the fact that it resides within us, and we need to deal with it. We need to know, be aware of what's happening in the world.
Sheila, I completely agree with everything that you finished off by saying. I want to take a step further. I want to take a step back, actually, and go into inspiration. Your background is in science, okay? And I know that within this narrative, that it has that science infused into it, okay? So we recognize that. But when it comes to creative writing, talk to us a little bit more in depth about where that love for writing comes from. Was this something you were doing growing up? Were there artists that inspired you? Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm a reader, and often readers turn into writers at some point in their life, because readers love the written word, and I always did. So, when I was growing up and I was even in high school, I always had my head stuck in a book. And I got criticized for that, but I don't apologize for it, because I think that's where the roots of writing come from. When you familiarize yourself with a lot of different styles, and you sort of get immersed and involved and escape into other people's writing, and that leads you to want to put the written word on a page yourself. So I firmly believe that readers, a lot of them often turn into writers. My favorite writer in high school was John Steinbeck, and I've read everything he's ever written, or he ever wrote. And I also have some favorites since then. Ann Tyler I like, and she's a people writer. She writes about people. She has very good style. It's distinctive, it's quirky. She develops her characters well. So I would just say I've always been interested in the written word, and I think that's what led me to get my ideas on paper.
People, again, we're here on the line with Sheila J. Wood. We're discussing her book, Waiting for Elijah, A Walk Through Time. Available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but make sure you check out her personal site, SheilaJWood.com, to gather everything that she has in store. Sheila, we've waited long enough. Let's talk about your book, Waiting for Elijah. Tell us a little bit more about the journey that you take your readers on.
Okay, well, the main character is Phoebe Friedman. She's a young lady, right around 30 years old, and she lives in Providence, Rhode Island. And she's going about her business. She's a young professional. She has a social life. She has friends. And then one day, a friend calls her on the phone and says, this is her friend Liz, who is an antiquities dealer, who says, I think I've found a Friedman vase. And Phoebe says, I don't think so. The Friedman vase is in Phoebe's family. Her great-grandfather was actually the creator and developer of systems to make ceramics, factories to make ceramics. His origin was in Germany in the 1930s. He immigrated with his family to the United States in 1933. So Phoebe's well aware that the vases are around, but they're very rare. So she goes, yeah, I don't think so. And as it turns out, she actually visited the same shop that her friend Liz saw it in and realized that it was an authentic Friedman vase. The interesting thing was the store owner would not sell it. He would not sell it to either one of them, though they both tried to purchase it. And following Liz's attempt to buy it, she was actually tailed, and they found her, and she had been murdered. So at that point, Phoebe started gathering resources around her. She called a friend who had a detective in Providence who was interested in what was happening in the illegal importation business, connected Liz to one of the people that they were tailing from a detective standpoint, and realized that there was something nefarious going on in Providence. So at that point, Phoebe says, I need to get out of here because I'm at risk. My life's at risk. So she moves to New York City to be with her friend Garrison while they sort things out in Providence. And in the meantime, the group of friends goes to the library and starts researching because Phoebe doesn't know a whole lot about her heritage. And they find out all this information about the Friedman ceramics and how they immigrated and moved from Germany to the United States, and how the factory that they had was burned out by someone from his past. And John lost his life. The factory moves to Providence, and they start all over. So it's a lot about starting over. It's a lot about struggling during all these processes. And Phoebe comes to know her family through this. So she's involved in the intrigue that went with her history. And somewhere along the line, she figures out that her grandfather, her great-grandfather, were both involved in helping people to flee Germany, especially the Jewish families who needed to get out right away. And so part of what I'm not going to tell you is how they did that, but I will say it had to do with ceramics. But they had their methods, and they had their way of moving contraband and exchanging for people and exchanging for people's safety. So this plays out throughout the book, and we see names from Western Europe who were involved in all of the different processes popping up on the East Coast. So they're the descendants of the main players who were in Western Europe during this time. There are a lot of tentacles. There are a lot of connections that are made in Western Europe, and every one of them was essential to the end product of saving lives. So it adds to the concept of, hey, we're all connected. We're in this together. What one person does affects the other, and also that we inherit some of our talents and our ingenuity from our ancestral line.
Sheila, next question that I'd love to get into. Who would you, two-part question here with this next one, but who would you say is your intended audience with this book? And I know that there are a lot of different things that can be pulled from it, but what are some of the messages or themes that you really want to make sure that your readers take?
I would like for it to be enjoyable for people who are aware of how important it is to have information about their ancestral line and how that applies to their lives, because that energy is transmitted through ancestral lines. And also for people who, just like I said before, just want to read a book for enjoyment. It's fun to read. For people who are curious about what are the unseen energies that affect us on a daily basis and how do they affect us? You know, there are parts, places in the book where I give homage to metaphysics. So one is, Aunt Mabel does a tarot read. Sharon, who is Eli's mother, goes to a seer and gets this beautiful channeled message about feminine energy. So anyone who is interested in those sorts of things, this book would actually, hopefully, pique their interest enough so that they would branch out and, solve their curiousness by reading about those sorts of things. We all tend to miss those that have passed before us.
Yeah.
But when we actually realize that there are ways to communicate and ways to feel that energy, it kind of livens up our day-to-day life. We're more aware. We're more aware of where we're going. So if in some regard I could pique the interest or get that sort of energy flowing within them, I think that would be a good message.
Mm-hmm. Sheila, let's switch gears here, okay? Let's focus now on the future because this book is amazing. And people Amazon, Barnes & Noble, SheilaJWood.com. Head on over there, pick up your copies of Waiting for Elijah. But what's next for you, Sheila? Please tell me there's another book on the horizon. What's upcoming for you?
Well, I have in mind another book that follows Waiting for Elijah and starts with Phoebe's daughter, Rose, at the end of the book, who was a baby, but would like to extend this story, so to speak, into the continuing lives of this particular ancestral line, and speak more in terms of science, a science that has to do with vaccine development and other issues that we run into in the laboratory instead of history. So it's more about science than history. And I would also have in my future a book that explains my techniques as an intuitive healing coach and some of the things that I impart to people in the area of energy work. So those are the two major projects that I have in mind.
You got to head on over there. Check back in frequently. SheilaJWood.com, her Amazon, Barnes & Noble pages. You could thank me later. I mean, this is a fantastic journey for you to embark upon and something for you to just get lost in. Head on over there today and pick up your copies. Sheila, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. It's my pleasure.